But you need to estimate the safe donor. I used to estimate the safe donor with a 2D, but then I moved to a 3D because the 3D gives me the ability to have more understanding and having more accurate measurement in assessing what we do. So, at the beginning, the quick setup, you cut the hair, 1 square centimeter, you put a trichoscope, take a picture, you can count. But, you know, it's going to be difficult to do that all the time. So you need tools to make sure that you have accurate, especially if you want to go in mega session or giga session, you need more than just cutting tiny follicles. I know my younger doctors, they don't like using the 3D because they feel like it's taking more time, but you need to go there. Really, it can be a quick thing. If you understand, you can mark few spots and you can count the number of follicular units in each of the spot. You can compute, you can look at the lower zone and put them on the side because you may have a little bit miniaturization there. You can look at the percentage of miniaturization because you need to flag the border so you know what to take and what not to take, and also account for future loss. We don't have a crystal ball, but we need to make sure, especially, you see, most of the patients that he presented with a giga session are not your 22, 23 years old patients. The more mature patient with a hair loss that is mature. So when you start doing this on patients who are 25, where they may lose half of the donor area in the next 10 years, it could be a problem. So you have to be careful because assessment of the donor has to take into account family history, age, medication. So here quickly, it's a small video just to show, this is Dr. Costis. We take donor area. You can mute the video. Yeah. So what we look for a doctor is to really see what are the boundaries. That's the first thing. You need to know what are the boundaries, age, so you know where to take the measurement. Quite important. Look at. I usually start with mastoid, and I exclude the lower nape most of the time because I know with age you may lose hair in the lower part of the nape. Retrograde alopecia is real. So always some people just check the donor like this, but sometimes you have to do like this to see that you can have 2-3 centimeters in retrograde. So you have to make sure that you also look at miniaturization. And when you're not sure about the border, just do a safety zone. I usually do a safety zone. I just decrease by 1 centimeter just to make sure that I stay in the safe zone. So here I just took this video. You can leave the sound. What you can do, you can use a trichoscope. Have one that has a square centimeter inside, and you can measure density. The easy way to measure density, the first thing you do, you look at the tragus. You take the line from the tragus up. Obviously, the age of the patient is going to be important because the height of the safe donor will depend on the age of the patient. If he's taking medication, it's family history. But also when you're checking the donor. So I usually on this line start by checking donor area on top, midway, and then the lower part. Why? I want to see pigmentation change. I want to see miniaturization percentage, what I call BDMI. Miniaturization percentage.
I want to see architecture distortion in terms of follicles. Some follicle unit will be like this, but some will have all kinds of directions. And Dr. Sinclair has shown that that would be the early sign of androgenetic alopecia. So we go from the trigus, and then we go on the mastoid process line. We also do the same thing, checking density on the bottom, on top, in the middle, and on top. We do the same in occipital by localizing the protuberance there and checking. So it gives you data on how the donor area is at a certain time, miniaturization, the type of follicles. So then you can break it down into different geometrical.
So you need to learn your geometry, and we study that, but you need to go back and learn how to calculate the surface of a figure. If you don't want to do that, the 3D. But I usually like also to talk a lot about miniaturization because it kind of gives you a score on your donor. If you have more than 25-30% of miniaturization in the donor, I think you're borderline. More than that, you become not a sustainable candidate. So really important to look at what I call a BDMI, but so why is important when you analyze donor? You see, if you are in the middle of the donor area, you can see here the density is 75 follicular units per square centimeter, because with the machine you get all this data, and the percentage of vellus hair. Look at the percentage of vellus hair when you just move a little bit for 1 centimeter. You look at the percentage of vellus hair, you go from 12% of vellus hair to 50% of vellus hair. Vellus hair is hair that is less than 30 micron. It's hair that is miniaturizing. So, but if you do not pay attention to things like that, you're going to harvest hair that have 50% miniaturized hair. Then don't be surprised if your result is 50% less. So it's important to see the number of follicular units, how many follicular units you have, the double, the single, because all that enter in a good master plan when you planning the surgery. So you can have report like that with a 3D. As I say, you can play with it. You can basically choose whatever you want and have the measurement. It's like this. You just take the patient, you can rotate the head, you can decide here, I want to take the measurement there, and you do that, and then at the end it just gives you a good calculation of everything that you need, and so you can record it. Why is important? Because it's going to help you avoid overharvesting. We all see these horrific windows, as I call them, in the back of the head because of overharvesting by poor planning. Sorry, I think can you go back to the original screen then? Thank you. So we avoid overharvesting, we avoid bad planning, and we align expectation by explaining to the patient that you may require more than one surgery. It's important with high low to tell them that hair loss is a progressive, especially when they're younger, they need to plan for more surgery. And also they can plan for cost and everything. You can combine both technique, and you can have also good documentation, because sometimes patients come a year later, 2 years, say, oh, but I didn't get this. But if we knew the density that you have, and we know what we took in a certain surface, so you can demonstrate also that what you have is actually the density that we expected. If we shoot for 30 follicular units, that's how it's going to look like. You know, if you have 300 square centimeter, if you put 30 density, you have 9,000 grams. It may sound that up, but 30 density may not cut it. So patients sometimes are caught up just in the number of follicular units that's been implanted, but forget that this number is on the surface. So why accurate? Because we want to make sure that we use a tool that can give us data that we can record, we can tell the patient, we can play simulation of hair, how they're going to look like. Now we have longer FUE, but you can play that on a patient and show them, listen, if we decrease this amount of graft by taking 50%, so it can show you how many grafts you can take in that square. If you take 50%, if you take 30%, if you take 15%, some patients, because they only have 1 and 2 hair in the donor, if you take 20%, the donor is going to look overharvested. So it's all about what is in the donor and not what you can take. So we usually shoot for these numbers when we do the planning, and some patients may require you to do a lot of calculations. So how we calculate the number of follicular units that we're going to plant, the target follicular unit minus the baseline that he has. I like to do this calculation. Some of my doctors think that I bore them with all this, but I love it. If I was not going to medical school, I'm planning to do mathematics, so this is something that I enjoy doing and explaining, but you really have to understand, and when you have this engineer coming in your office, they want to have all this data so they can understand how you plan your surgery. So, safe donor, I usually talk a lot about it, and I think if you have a good donor approach, you can plan your surgery and you can avoid misery. So you can see, you can take 4,900 grafts in a single set of patient and not having that window because you spread the extraction. You know, 11 days post-op, there is no trauma because you have a safe extraction pattern when you go. As say, Philippe say, you can take body hair to preserve scalp hair because your scalp hair, if you exhausted everything, you'll be in trouble to fix the patient. You know, if they require more because they're dropping or they want a little bit hairline drop. So it's important to move from 2D to 3D because it gives you really good information and outcome. And today with the AI, you can play with a lot of things. These are all the math that how many grafts you can take into the expected survival and the delta of the graft. So you can have your crown, you can plan. You know that the base FUE density that they have, how many you want to add, so you have a delta 20. If you put the survival, and then you can know how many grafts you need for a surface. And then ethnicity, you always have to look at coarse curly hair that provide same visual density. They may require less density. If they have finer hair, texture hair, all that will help you managing the risk, staging, look at the patient with the hair, when you shave them, how they look like. So you capture 3D, you export how many follicular unit density you want, you choose the zone that you're going to target, the survival factor, you compute all that, you validate against donor capacity, and then you save the plan, you screenshot, you discuss the roadmap with the patient, and thank you very much.